What's going on? What's going on, YouTube family? And welcome back to the Emperor Atheist channel with your host, the Emperor Atheist. My last video, and like I told y'all, I was starting this installment of basically showing the incoherence of the argument of theodicy, which deals with the free will defense, which is weak, and basically which stems from the doctrine of original sin. So that was my first video on that. So this particular video is still basically within the same realms, and it's going to stick with the same subject matter. I'm just going to go a little further. Within the first video, I talked about how the FWD, or the free will defense, basically tries to take their God off of the hook and tries to basically says that God has no blame in all of the evil in the world, dealing with one particular type of evil, which we call moral evil. In this particular video, I'm going to deal with non-moral evil, but at the same time, I still want to finish or extend on why this God has a blame on moral evil. And when I spoke about it in the last video, I spoke about the Adam and Eve story and how it made no sense. How can Christian apologists claim, people like William Lane Craig and Plantinga and Swinburne and others, how can they claim that this God actually gave Adam and Eve free will when there was a serpent, a nakash, within the Garden of Eden? You know, think about this. First of all, I would like to lay an example out, a rational example, because I like to have clarity and to be very clear on my points. If I was to say that I wanted to have a child, or you wanted to have a child, and for some reason you knew, you had pre-knowledge or foreknowledge that this child would grow up and be a mass murderer or would be a terrorist and would kill thousands of people, but you went ahead and had this child anyway, then who would be responsible for that child's killings and murders? You would be, the parent would be. This is the same example of God. How can you say God is blameless when you claim he created, or he's omnibenevolent, all love, he's omnipotent, all powerful, he's omniscience, all knowing? But how can you say he is blameless in moral evil when he knew what man was going to do? Because if he's omniscient, then of course he knows all things. So the blame is still on God. Think about this, with free will or not. He gave Adam and Eve free will, okay, for hypothetical reasons. Even him giving Adam and Eve free will, he still had the power to stop them from destroying all the rest of the DNA of the rest of the humans, the rest of their descendants. It makes no sense for a Christian to believe, or a Muslim, whoever, to believe that this God or this free will is real, because it's not really free will if God allowed Adam to make a choice that would affect thousands and thousands and thousands of years of descendants. Now, the argument might could be made if this God would have just said, okay, I'm going to give Adam this neutral nature, this neutral choice making, and whatever he does will simply affect him and his wife. But that wasn't the case. As I showed in the first video, all of the Bible verses that basically contradict free will within humans. But this particular God just sat back, already knowing, let's always keep this in mind, because this God is omniscience. And these are some of the characteristics that are going to show why the argument for the problem of evil and suffering is still intact, still valid, and basically destroys theism, and basically shows that God does not exist and is incompatible with these three characteristics. But this God sat back and allowed Adam to make this choice, knowing that this choice would cause all type of evil. Now, like I said, if this God would have made it so that this would just affect Adam and Eve. Now, this is still not to say that the rest of the descendants having free will would not commit evil. But think about this. If God would have just allowed Adam and Eve to just be affected by their own decision, then the rest of the descendants, think about this, even if they still could have been prone to make choices, bad choices. But don't you think it would have been stronger free will than humans? Not only would free will have been stronger within humans, but there probably would be less evil in the world if that would happen. But that didn't happen. God allowed and trusted the moral autonomy of these new people, which I have to keep making this particular point because it actually makes no sense when you sit back and think about it. God trusted the moral autonomy of these newly made people that he just made, which I always have to say again. People had no life experiences, no psychological experiences. They didn't understand what it was to be tricked, they was naive, okay? But for some reason, this particular God who, once again, was omniscient, all-knowing, had a serpent. He made them in a garden where a serpent was around. A serpent, what I must reiterate again, was considered to be highly more intelligent than they were. Why would an all-knowing God, who already knew that Eve would be outsmarted by this particular serpent, because God is omniscient, right? He already knew that she would be outsmarted by the serpent, and he already knew that she would basically force her man to do the same thing. But then this God comes back to the garden, and he's emotionally angry. Now, for the life of me, I've talked to pastors, even when I was steers. This literally made no damn sense to me. Why would an all-knowing deity show emotion and actually send out punishments after he already knew that this was going to happen? If you say that God gave them free will, real free will, okay, and they made the wrong choice, then why didn't God just correct them with love? Why didn't he show love and say, hey, you did this? This was a test with this serpent in the garden just to see what y'all gonna do, you though. Of course, I'm omniscient, I already know what y'all's gonna do. See how stupid this is? It's circular stupid. But why didn't he just show love and say, hey, I'm gonna give y'all another chance because y'all didn't know. But now y'all know, okay? Now y'all know this serpent is walking around the garden. I allowed his vocals to be able to talk to y'all so he could trick y'all. But I know y'all didn't know he was gonna trick y'all. Y'all didn't understand that. But he didn't. He actually sent out punishments. And now, accordingly, hypothetically, all of our DNA are automatically, by default, sinful because of the choice they made. Now, I want this to sink in to you people who listen, to you theists, man, to you trolls. I want this to sink in. Your God doing something like this, you have to actually defend the cruel acts of something like this. Because for God is all-knowing and all-powerful, he could have stopped that. He could have just cut that off, like I said, with Adam's line, but he didn't. So now, thinking about the non-moral acts, and as I just pointed out slightly in my last video, non-moral acts being tornadoes, tsunamis, hurricanes, fires. Do you know how many families and children die in fires every day? Accidents on the road, DUIs, non-DUIs, baby births, children dying in the hospital for cancer. All of these things are what we would call non-moral acts. Now, it is obvious that your God, if he is omnipotent, he has the power to stop these things, but he doesn't. So when we talk about the problem of evil and suffering in the world, and why this argument is basically one of the #1 daggers to theism and Christianity and Islam and Judaism, is because if you claim to have a God that's omniscient, omnibenevolent, and omnipotent, omniscient, and omnibenevolent, then how can this particular deity be all love, omnibenevolent, but still allow so much evil? And I want to ask a question. I want to give an example of this. If I was to tell a Christian or a Muslim that, hypothetically speaking, I think your God is omnibenevolent or all evil, any atheist, any anti-theist, any agnostic, it wouldn't even take for the theists to disagree with that, with rationale, because they would have a reason to disagree with that. Any atheist would disagree with that. I mean, we're just hypothetically speaking that this God is real. And why would I say that would make no sense for me to call this God all evil? Because when I look into the world, for God to be omnibenevolent or all evil, then that would have to be all evil in the world. But when I look into the world, I actually see some good. I actually see good things. I actually see humans who actually help other humans, regardless of ethnicities, regardless of religion. I actually see love and compassion within the world. So for me to say that your deity will be all evil, that would be a contradiction of what we see in the world. And I think you would agree with that. So why is it when we turn this back around and you tell me that your God is omnibenevolent, all good, how can that be so when we see all this evil in the world and all this suffering? And when we look at these three characteristics, these attributes, omnibenevolent, all love, omnipotence, all powerful, and omniscience, all knowing, there's no way that a deity could be all loving and be all powerful and still allow evil and suffering to go in the world. When Christians try to use a certain defense, not even the free will defense, but just a defense, well, you know, Emperor Atheist, and I've heard it so many years and in so many different ways and twists. Well, Emperor Atheist, God allows certain things to happen so we can learn from these things. So he lets suffrage continue so we can learn from it, because certain evil and certain sufferings, it purifies us. People who say that, I think, should go see a psychiatrist. And the reason I'm going to just beat this up and get this up, because I know a lot of Christians thinking this. The thing about this, when you take these same people into a children's hospital, and what I just mentioned, and you see all the suffering of these children, how they're dying of cancer and cancer eating their brains away, then what the Christian has to do, they have to come up with all these excuses to defend this stupid God, this cruel God. And they have to say, well, even though this child didn't bring any sin upon themselves, they're going to have to defend and come up with a twisted way to try to make their omnibenevolent God seem like he's still all loving. But there's this particular wicked, stupid reason why he's allowing this. You see, when you actually rationalize the ignorance of religion and theism, you see that you basically back these theists and these Christians in a corner to where they have to keep making excuses. And this is why I keep coming at these apologists, because this is what apologists do. These apologists out here coming up with these weak and stupid arguments to continue to try to make their God seem like he is real. But these characteristics of omnibenevolence, omnipotence, and omniscience contradict each other. They're square circles. Therefore, this God does not exist. The Christian God does not exist. The Islamic God does not exist. The Judaic God does not exist. Theodicy and the free will defense are not good arguments. They're not good arguments at all. They're weak. They fall very short. They're fallacious to certain degrees and to certain levels. Because when you actually just go, you don't even have to go past Genesis, as you see I haven't. Just stick with the garden story. For a God to start off as being omniscient and to be omnipotent and to be omnibenevolent, there's no way in the hell he would have created two human beings, two humans who had no life experiences, and would place them in danger off the rip. Off the rip, he placed them in danger to be in the presence of a serpent who could actually trick them and outsmart them. So that storyline alone should not be accepted by intelligent people. I'm sorry. It's stupid. It's made up. It's not a real book. It's not a real God that these things are portraying. I'm going to continue this particular series because this, like I say, the argument from evil and suffering has not really been challenged by people like William Lane Craig. I would debate Craig on this. I would debate any Christian apologists on this particular subject just to hear their twists and turns. William Lane Craig even has a video series talking about free will defense. Matter of fact, I might put that inside of this video so y'all can actually see the crap that he's saying and the twists and the lies. Matter of fact, I will put William Lane Craig video link to this video so you can actually go and see what I mean for those who are not familiar with theodicy And these arguments that Christian apologists actually try to defend theodicy against the argument from evil and the argument from suffering. Once again, I thank you for watching my video. I thank all my supporters. I thank all my new and old subscribers. And thanks to all the trolls. I do have some upcoming events coming up for us, debates and some discussions. So, like I said, I'm going to just, I don't really have a calendar for certain things, but they're coming up in the next couple of weeks. Just haven't set a lot of dates. But like I said, once again, man, thanks for joining me. Thanks for watching the Ember Atheist channel. I'm the Ember Atheist. I'm out. Peace.